Imagine, God appears to the prophet and says, "Go and take a harlot wife and children of fornication, for this land has committed great fornication by turning away from the Lord." Hosea lived in the northern kingdom of Israel in the 8th century BC, during the time of King Jeroboam II, when the country was experiencing the last surge of economic prosperity before the catastrophe. Wealth flowed, trade flourished, borders expanded, but the spiritual state of the people was rotten to the core. Israel formerly worshipped Yahweh, but temples to Baal, the pagan god of fertility, stood on every hill, and ritual prostitution flourished in these temples, where women gave themselves to strangers right in the sanctuaries, believing that this act would bring fertility to the land and blessing to their families. This was not just a religious apostasy, but a complete mixture of Yahwism and Canaanite paganism. People sacrificed to the Lord in the morning, and in the evening went to the temple of Baal for sexual rituals, believing that both gods would help them in different spheres of life. The prophets shouted about this lawlessness, but the people did not listen, because the economy was growing, the army was winning, and it seemed that the gods were pleased with such religious syncretism. In this atmosphere of spiritual prostitution, God called the young prophet Hosea and gave him the strangest, most shocking command his servants had ever received. "Go and take a harlot wife and the children of fornication, for this land has committed great fornication by turning away from the Lord. Do not preach against fornication, do not rebuke sinners, but marry a harlot," a command that destroyed all social norms, religious decency, and common sense. Hosea obeyed and married a woman named Gomer, the daughter of Divlaim, and the Bible text explicitly calls her a harlot, which means either a woman who was engaged in prostitution before marriage, or one who was unfaithful to her first husband, or a participant in temple prostitution in the cult of Baal. Hosea knew what he was doing. He married a woman with a ruined reputation, and he did it not secretly, but openly, as a prophetic act in front of the whole nation, and one can only imagine what the neighbors, friends, and family said. "Are you crazy? You're a disgrace to the name of God. What kind of prophet marries a prostitute? It's not from the Lord, it's your lust. You're not just crazy, you're a pervert." Hosea probably heard these words every day, and he had only one answer to them. "The Lord God himself ordered me to marry Gomer, so that you could see by her example how you treat God and how he treats you." His marriage was not a personal choice, but a live sermon, a one-actor theatre where every scene of the family drama spoke about the spiritual state of Israel. Homer bore Hosea 3 children, and God ordered them to be given names that sounded like the verdict of the nation. The first son was named Jezreel, after the city where King Jehu carried out the bloody massacre of the Ahab dynasty, and this name meant, "I will exact the blood of Jezreel from the house of Jehu and put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel." Imagine, you call your son by a name that literally means God's retribution is coming. Every time you call him, you utter a prophecy about the destruction of the kingdom. The daughter was named Loruchama, the merciless one, because God said, "I will no longer have mercy on the house of Israel in order to forgive them." The second son was named Loami, not my people, the most terrible name of all, meaning breaking the covenant. You are not my people, and I will not be your God. 3 children with cursing names walking the streets of the city, a constant reminder that God's patience is running out and judgment is approaching. But the worst was yet to come. Homer began to cheat on Hosea, going to other men, returning to her past as a harlot, and the prophet, who knew about this, continued to live with her, endure shame, and raise children who might not even be from him. The Bible does not describe Hosea's emotions, but his prophecies are imbued with the pain of a deceived husband. "She went after her lovers, but forgot about me. She said, 'I will follow my lovers, who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drinks.'" It was not just a marital crisis, but the literal embodiment of Israel's relationship with God. The people fornicated with other gods, believing that Baal gives harvest, fertility, wealth, forgetting that all this comes from Yahweh, who led them out of Egypt and gave them the promised land. Every betrayal of Gomer was a living sermon on the spiritual adultery of the nation, and Hosea carried this cross in front of everyone, becoming a laughingstock and an object of pity. At some point, Homer left Hosea completely, plunging so deeply into prostitution that she fell into slavery, either sold herself for debts or was sold by a pimp, but the fact remained. The prophet's ex-wife became a slave, property and a commodity on the market. And then God gave Hosea a second impossible command. Go again and love a woman who is loved by her husband but commits adultery, just as the Lord loves the children of Israel. Hosea went to the slave market, found Gomer in the humiliating position of a concubine or prostitute, bought her for 15 pieces of silver and 1.5 homers of barley, a pitiful price, showing how much she had fallen because the usual price of a slave was 30 pieces of silver, and here even half was paid in grain, as for cattle. He brought her home, but set a condition. Stay with me for many days, do not fornicate or be with another, I will be the same for you. It was the restoration of marriage on new terms, a period of abstinence, purification, and rebuilding relationships, when both spouses would not be close to each other, giving Gomer time to change and herself time to heal from the pain of betrayal. And all this was a prophetic act indicating that Israel would go into exile, lose its king, temple, and sacrifices, but not forever. God would bring them back again, restore the covenant, and cleanse them from fornication with other gods. The story of Hosea and Gomer is not a sweet parable about forgiveness, but a bleeding wound open for all to see, a living demonstration of what it means to love someone who betrays you over and over again. Hosea did not just preach about God's love for Israel. He lived this love in his broken marriage, endured shame, pain, ridicule, humiliation, so that the people could see his family tragedy as a mirror of their relationship with God. Gomer's every betrayal screamed, "That's what you do to the Lord." Every time Hosea forgave and accepted her back, the people saw, "That's what God does to you." When he bought her out of slavery by spending his own money on the woman who betrayed him, it was a living illustration of redemption. God will pay the price to bring his people back from the captivity of sin, idolatry, and spiritual prostitution. Hosea's prophecies are riddled with this pain. What will I do to you, Ephraim? What will I do to you, Judas? I will turn Ephraim into a desert and let the beasts of the earth devour him. But then, what will I do to you, Ephraim? How will I betray you, Israel? My heart turned in me, and all my pity was kindled. This is the voice of a husband torn between righteous anger at betrayal and impossible love for his betrayed wife. Hosea became the first biblical prophet to use the image of marriage to describe the covenant between God and Israel, a metaphor that would later be picked up by Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the authors of the New Testament, calling the church the bride of Christ. But for Hosea, it wasn't a metaphor, it was his life, his daily reality, his broken heart and trampled dignity.